evening. We're going to call to order the Concord Township Board of Trustees meeting for June 24th, 2024. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Lucci.
Present.
Mr. McIntosh.
Present.
Mr. Dondorfer.
Present. Okay, and moving into our approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from the June 3rd, 2024 staff meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. And I move to approve the June 5th, 2024 regular trustee meeting minutes.
I was not there.
Okay, you can second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And moving into our elected officials report, we will start this evening with our fiscal officer, Mr. John Patriarca.
Thank you, Mr. Dondorfer. The fiscal office completed the final draft of the 2025 Concord Township tax budget and presented the proposed budget to the board this afternoon. This evening, my office will be requesting the board set a public hearing on the proposed tax budget for Monday, July 8th at 4 p.m. Notice of the public hearing will be published in the News Herald once confirmed and approved by the board. Also, just a quick update on the JED revenue distribution as we approach the midway point of the year. Through June, JED has generated approximately $450,000 of revenue for Concord Township, including $70,000 of revenue for the month of June. I'll continue to update the board and the residents on the productivity of JED revenue as we approach Q4 of 2024. And if any residents have specific financial questions, please don't hesitate to contact the fiscal office directly at 440-354-7516. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Patriarca. And moving into the trustees' reports for this evening, Mrs. Lucci.
Thank you, Mr. Dondorfer. I guess, do we want to agree on July 8th for a public hearing on the...
July 8th?
Yeah, at
Public
4
hearing.
o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, it's good to be back together. A few of us have been out on vacation, but I'm happy to be back. I'd like to say happy summer to everyone. We had 3 summer concerts so far. I know this week we're expecting a big crowd with Abbey Rodeo. I'd like to thank our sponsors and our vendors and those who support these events, as well as our rec department for organizing and putting it all together. I did speak with a few residents while I was away. One was an issue of noise complaints from houses that are close to Interstate 90 traffic. We discussed how to address possible options with ODOT, and Andy gave him some more information as well. A resident also reached out to discuss what happened at St. Gabriel's over the festival and is concerned about our safety services and as far as how many deputies were on patrol, which kind of turned into a discussion about the COPS grant. Kind of long story short, you know, we're still looking for possibly increasing the number of deputies. We're very sorry what happened at the festival. I would like to thank our law enforcement and our fire department for handling this and restoring peace that evening. We did receive some good news. A couple of residents reached out. They saw the article in News Herald about money that is allocated for our water line project, which we originally intended to use ARPA money for, but we had to reallocate that to our sheriff's contract. I'd like to thank Andy for helping that move along. There are a few more things that have to pass before that is totally coming to fruition, but it should be a pretty good deal, and so we're very excited for that. Last, we are hoping that the votes for the recommendation for the local government fund gets completed very soon. The work that our committee did, including our own Morgan McIntosh, includes a very solid plan that would be favorable for the townships in Concord. With that, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucci. Mr. McIntosh.
Good evening. Just good to see everybody together again. It's been some time since we all sat together. I just got back from being out of the country for a couple weeks, so being here just feels weird to begin with. I was able to attend the first summer concert series. We had a beautiful evening. It was really nice. We had a great band. It was wonderful to get that started. Haven't seen the last couple because I've been out of the country. Had a great trip, but unfortunately, the last thing that happened in the township that I was sort of connected to before I left was the incident at St. Gabe's, and I know we had a lot of information streaming in pretty quickly from the fire department. I know Carl had contacts with the sheriff's department, and definitely a upsetting event and something that affected all of us. My opinion and just what I've heard, and haven't heard a whole lot since the water calmed and it was over, is that our safety forces did a great job and that everything got taken care of. And unfortunately, it seems like in the area, I did notice that Macedonia had a problem the same night. This was followed by an incident in Lyndhurst, and I believe since I've been gone, there's been more. So this is I think it's hard to be calm about something like this and take comfort. However, I think our law enforcement did a great job handling it. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and we need to recognize that isn't just a fundamental problem within the community. We don't need to be worried. This is something that's happening. It's orchestrated, and it's a deal, and I believe that can help it be dealt with. So residents of Concord should be rested assured that we're very committed to making sure everything stays safe, and we're as concerned as everyone else is about that. I did get some questions about the RID, the Residential Improvement District legislation, which I'm sure we'll talk a bit about more. Quick pass on that. My feeling is that's just something that keeps tax dollars in Concord and is beneficial to the township. And it doesn't have a negative impact to most people. So it's dollars that don't exist at this point. We're just keeping them here for a period of time, similar to a TIF, which we do in our business district, have been doing them for a long time. I know Andy worked really hard on the keeping on top of Senator Sherino's office as far as getting that water line project. So I know we had that big win, and I think we've got some other things coming. But tonight we are voting item B on the agenda is the change the new local government fund to be adopted across Lake County. And I believe if we are not the community that is going to put it over the top, we're one of them. Tonight will be the point where we hit 12 communities, which is enough to make it pass. I was aware of the local government fund situation and that being a disproportionate formula long before I was a trustee, actually. When I got involved, my expectation was, okay, so Concord could do a little bit better. And when you take a look at where we were, the townships and the east end of the county were very neglected in that funding strategy. So it was always understood that it was going to be a big task to put something together that was a win, because communities, in order to help the communities that have been shortchanged for so long, we're going to have to give up a lot. We went into that meeting, those series of meetings, through the Mayors and Managers Association. It started out pretty contentious, but in this world of divided politics, it was amazing how well everyone worked together. You had mayors, you had city managers and trustees, and ultimately everybody started paddling in the same direction. And every time a problem was raised, people talked about how to solve it. How can we help you? Oh, this doesn't work. Well, what about this? What about that? And when you sit there and talk about government and people, we get a bad reputation sometimes about not being able to do stuff. Government can't get out of its own way. Politics, bureaucracy. The residents of Lake County need to be very proud of the elected leaders that participated in this, and ultimately every elected leader that's going to be part of adopting this, because it took a community to work together. It took a community from one end of Lake County to come together and make something that, I don't know, I'm sure it's politics, right? So someone's going to sharpshoot it and say that it's not equitable. I'll say that it's equitable. It's a big improvement for communities that have been shortchanged for years, and it's a managed decline or trimming of communities that have had maybe a disproportionate advantage. So when you see politics paralyzed at certain levels, you can take pride in the fact that this was something that got done in 8 meetings, 20 revisions. We didn't start working on a formula until mid-January and proposed one to the Budget Commission in the middle of May. That's undoing a 42-year formula that was politically constructed, a bit contentious at times. We got it done in 4 months. So I'm very proud to have participated in that, and I think it's going to be a good thing for Lake County, or for Concord Township and for Lake County going forward. And with that, concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Glad you're back.
Thank you.
So as far as my comments, I'd just like to say, it was a very unfortunate situation at St. Gabriel's when I've been involved in that parish since the early 70s. Never seen anything like that. I will say, though, I was very impressed with our safety services and the response. I would like the community to know that the township was notified immediately when that situation evolved, and we worked with the Sheriff's Department as well as the Fire Department on a plan of action, and the Sheriff's Department did a phenomenal job, as well as our Fire Department, in mitigating that situation. It was a very volatile situation. I will tell you, from the information that I've heard, that it was somewhat organized. There was social media chatter and on different platforms about that, and other festivals where certain groups are organizing before these events take place, and they're going to these different festivals to cause disturbances and chaos. So moving forward, I know I met with Chief McAllister before the Strawberry Festival, which was the weekend after St. Gabriel's, and we made some recommendations that they implemented and some best practices moving forward, and they didn't have any problems there. So I know that we're going to be meeting with St. Gabriel's down the road to work on some best practices and some improvements to ensure everyone's safety at those events moving forward. It's unfortunate, but we're going to do the best to keep our residents safe. As far as the local government fund, thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Your efforts are greatly appreciated. I think it showed a lot of collaboration that this was done in such short order, and most of the communities were in agreement, and I think it's going to be very beneficial for Lake County. I did have a couple calls since the last meeting. We had a neighbor issue regarding some zoning concerns and tall grass on a couple new construction sites that myself and Heather were able to work with the contractor and the builder on, and we got those rectified. I had a complaint regarding some work that First Energy did regarding some trees that were cut down, and we worked on that. I'd like to thank Mr. Rose as well as the township on their efforts on the water line funding. That was a tough decision for this board to make, as far as appropriating that money for safety services, which was a priority. But we did promise those residents along Girdle Road that was going to be a top priority for this board, and it was. And we did a great job with Mr. Rose, steering the ship forward and getting that done. So I'm very happy about that. Summer concert series is going great. We had a lot of attendance and good weather so far. So join us in the future, and that concludes my report. Moving on to department reports. Mr. Rose, administration.
Thank you, Mr. Dondorfer, members of the board, Mr. Patriarca, members of the audience, good evening. I'll start with some items that are on the agenda. Item B, which I'm very excited about, is Resolution 2024 TAC 18. That is the alternative formula for the local government fund vote. Item C is Resolution 2024 TAC 19. That amends and updates rules and regulations regarding our cemetery, and it also establishes a indigent burial policy. And I know that our law director and Karen Warner, our cemetery section, worked hand in hand on that policy, and I think it looks good. Item D is a vote to approve an updated price schedule for cemetery services. That'll go into effect immediately. The increases are related to the costs associated with the new columbariums that are coming this fall, and there's also increase in concrete costs due to the material costs that have been raised. Item E is turning into an annual vote. That is a purchase order for the Community Day tent that we have every year. And then item F is a vote for a change order for Discovery Lane. As you're aware, we originally budgeted $200,000 of TIF dollars for Discovery Lane, but the bids came in very favorable. And so Tim Brown, the service director, he was able to talk to the contractor, county engineer, and negotiate some extra work while the crews are in place. And then it lets us remain at the $200,000 ceiling. So the change orders for $21,452.50 to CC Construction, and that will expand the work zone and allow more work to be done, and we stay within the original budget that we had. So I thought that was good work by Tim Brown. Moving on, as previously talked about at the last meeting, the Citizens Advisory Committee did conclude their work. I did review the report. Mr. Patriarca, I know, has reviewed that report, and we have forwarded that report along to you. There is a spare copy at your respective stations. After my remarks are concluded, we'll move into the audience portion. Mr. John Paganini, who is one of the members of the Citizens Advisory Committee, is going to offer a few comments on his perspective. So we appreciate him joining us, along with Mr. Sandin, who's here for support. But, you know, I'd like to again publicly thank all the members of the Citizens Advisory Committee. This wasn't a one and done meeting. You know, there were many hours of discussion. There was research. There was good debate in the meeting before they came to their conclusion. So I really appreciate their efforts to help their community. As I talked about this last meeting, but I want to throw it out one more time, just as a reminder, especially because of all the garage sales and grad parties. You know, parking on the hydrant side of a street is prohibited, along with parking in cul-de-sacs. That is also prohibited, so that's just a friendly reminder. Looking forward to Abbey Rodeo, looking forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. That starts at 6:30 p.m. And finally, the next Coffee with the Administrator is Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. That's in the same place at the Community Center in the Jordan Room. So that concludes my report. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. And moving on to our audience portion of the evening, if anybody would like to step up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Okay, great.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
Me and
Yeah.
John Paganini, just a citizen who's been on Stewart Drive since 1999, and I got involved when the levy didn't pass, and I was just a concerned citizen about the safety in our city, and that's how I got involved in it, and it turned into a great experience, I think, for myself, and I assume everybody else that was involved in that committee, as we kind of joined forces and hammered out what we thought was a good strategy towards the next levy that's coming up. We understood now a lot more about what the police requirements are, the safety requirements are, the fire, and all of the equipment and necessary aspects of what it takes to actually run a safety services and fire department in the city of Concord. I certainly learned a lot. Much of that was from the people that were on the committee that just seemed enlightened with lots of background and history and experience and the numbers. So I think we all kind of grew together, and it was very democratic. And the whole experience was one where we came up to a conclusion that I think seems very community appropriate and friendly in a sense to help us move forward with a safer community ultimately. So my experience was just a great experience, and I was honored to be on this team of experts in a sense that really understood what was going on and what really needed to be happen. It was great to meet all the people like yourselves throughout the process, much less the fire department and the police department. So those are my comments. I think ultimately we have a strategy that was formulated based on a lot of different opinions and experience. And like you were saying, when things came together in 8 weeks, amazing things happened. And I think it was a pretty good result. and it just shows your I would say, experience in itself, and bringing on a citizens advisory committee says a lot about the community, and that you invited the community to help structure and think about what really needs to happen for the betterment of Concord. So that's it. Anything else, Andy? Okay.
Would you be willing to answer a couple questions? If we
Sure,
have to?
sure.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you, too, for being willing to participate, but actually to coming forward. You were one of a few people that were on the committee that came to us and expressed concern and said, we'd like to help.
Yeah.
So your concern in reaching out to us was the catalyst in the idea. So just one more demonstration of cooperativeness between the community and the
Sure.
elected officials. And I have a little bit of understanding. I mean, if looking through the report, you have multiple scenarios that you ran through. I know you got to meet with the sheriff's department and the fire department.
Yes.
It's easy to sit here and look at a report and easy to hear your remarks and say, well, we came up with something nice. There was debate. It took your group a while to come together. Could you talk a little bit about that for us? Because I think it'd be important for people to understand that it wasn't just a shake and bake, you did something, that you guys really worked through a lot of different ideas and competing opinions in that group, correct?
Yes, for sure. And initially, my concern was certainly the safety, the police forces, and that. But after we talked about it for weeks and weeks, it seemed the best approach was to put together what the report is stating, and that is accomplishing both the fire and police solution that would work for the community best temporarily, at least for now. And as far as the process, yes, there was a lot of different scenarios. If we did this levy with this amount of monies, then what would that get us? Would it get? And so we went back and forth many times. And as I said, the people in the room really understood the levy numbers much better than I did. And I think that was the whole democratic approach to coming together as a group. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
We
just to
looking
kind of
for
hop
more-
in there,
yeah.
it was really impressive to watch that group. I was kind of took the fly on the wall approach, just offering my insight whenever, maybe to confirm numbers, make sure we were on the same page. But, just to watch this group kind of cohesively come together, they were all over the place to start. Some people had different visions and it was just difficult, but we kind of brought everything together and knew what the end goal was. It was just, how do we get there, right? And so just watching this group come together as a team and really figure out what the best path forward was going to be was really impressive, because there were a lot of different options, multi-year strategies, and there was just a ton on the table. And to watch these guys deliberate, really go through the facts, do a ton of research was really impressive. And so I think he's almost underselling how much they were dedicated to finding the best possible solution, and how much work and how much effort that took. And so I can definitely attest to that. So thank you.
Yeah,
again.
good point.
How hard was it to come together? Maybe not to come together, because you talked about that, but when you look at the challenge of how to fund it, I mean, could you tell us a little bit more about? I mean, we're familiar with. I guess one of the things is if you could talk a little bit about the challenges of funding safety from the standpoint of. There's no easy answer to this. I mean, you guys looked at a lot of numbers and saw it. They're big dollars. There's big pieces to this puzzle. It's not something that just fits together simply.
Yeah, and we had to think about how many years do we look into the future. Certainly, that is an important factor. What do we need now immediately versus 5 years versus 10 years? Yeah, and you might have some thoughts on this as well, Jason, but we had to look at a lot of different scenarios, and it went to many years and much more levy. But I think ultimately our collaborative vision and decision-making was based on what is the right thing for the community today that we can accomplish. with a long-term vision, but yet a short-term goal to accomplish what we needed to. And as John was saying, and we did talk a lot about the numbers. There was people in the group who really had a good understanding of the numbers, and of course things like where does JED come into play and how that interacts. So you're probably asking for detail on that.
No,
Maybe, Jason, you have some thoughts on that yourself, but
I think that's a good. I mean, I think the other thought in my head is a bit about. I mean, the gas tank's empty. You know, we're not sitting here saying, hey, this would be nice to do. This is a need to do. This
Yeah.
is an emergency.
Sure.
We are at a spot where if we don't have more funding on top of the cuts that were made this year, there will be more cuts. There is no, and there was a lot of conversation out there that we're just padding fat budgets and so forth. And you can attest to the fact that's not the case.
yes, Mr. McIntosh, and that, when I walked into that meeting, was absolutely an unknown to me. I felt that, oh, we had this new fire department, wow, things are really good, but there was more to the story. And that became revealed and discussed, and we truly believe we came up with something we believe is the right thing for the community.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, what it shows for me is a group of you who have diverse backgrounds. I don't know if any of you even knew each other. You sort of had an idea, like you just mentioned, oh, you know, the fire station, you know, we've got to have resources in place. And you do all this research and you figure out, like, this is really where we're at. And your concern and your commitment to the community and you being in the community representing all of your other neighbors is what's really important for me.
Yeah.
That it's not just us making a recommendation or Andy, that
Sure.
it's from you all out there after doing the research and coming together and exploring all the different options. To me, that says an awful lot. And I really commend you on this effort. I thought it was an outstanding report. I delved into it a few times. I learned a lot from you guys. And I really appreciate it. And I'm sure our residents will appreciate this as well.
I hope they do. I hope they see that the insight that you all had in bringing in a citizens advisory committee is the magic, right? Because now we're all working together for the betterment of the community, and hopefully the community will see that we did take everything into account, and we believe this is the right thing for the community ultimately. So thank you, Mrs. Zolciak, for your comments.
I'd like to commend you, John, and the group also. I think it was an outstanding job and effort that you put forward. I was very impressed with the thoroughness of the report and how involved it was. It was enlightening, and like you said right now, I think this board historically, since we became into existence, we're stewards of the township's money, but we don't know it all. And, just like with Station 1, we held stakeholder meetings to try to get insight from, the community and moving that project forward. And this was just, one avenue as far as the Citizens Advisory Committee to sort of get, community involvement and maybe get some new insight and a different, fresh perspective on some different ideas that we couldn't think about. And there was a lot of fresh perspective and detailed in this report. And, I was, before this group came into play, I was really conflicted, how we were going to move forward and, bouncing other ideas off of each other and friends. And this was very clear. It was very well done. And it just shows how, we're committed to working with the community and working with, the residents here to do what's best for Concord, because that's our ultimate goal. We recognize, safety is a paramount function of any healthy community. And, we've got to get there together. And I think, your group working together did an outstanding job. I think this board has, looked outside the box. I mean, which is clearly evident by, going after the local government, fund and trying to renegotiate a formula that is more fair and that can better fit, the township, as well as looking at other financial revenue streams, at the state level and federal level to try to offset some of the costs that the township has. So it's just not primarily on each taxpayer within the township. So, I mean, clearly, you know, the board has done a lot to think outside the box, and bringing in this group has really, it's proud. I think it's a proud moment for the township, and a proud moment to have, you know, community involvement and show us working together. So I'm very proud of what you guys did, and thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Thank you. I mean, the others touched on it, and I did want to say, I mean, it's very impressive, thorough, well-written. This isn't I think I said in the last meeting, between the report itself, some supporting background and other things, I think we got like 40 pages of information from your group. It's not just somebody sat down and said, oh, we got to put a levy on, let's figure out the best way to do it. I mean, there was a ton of thought put into this.
Right.
Just very detailed, well-organized, and you know, at least from my perspective, when you put a group together and say, I'm going to step away and want to hear what you think, and then you come back, and I anticipated this was going to be the case, and your recommendation was kind of didn't fit where my head was, but that told me that you did the right thing, because I was going in a direction and said, hey, we're having a little bit of trouble sorting this out. Let's get a group involved, get some different opinions. And when it came out not how I expected, I was like, gee, maybe they did the right thing. You know, maybe the fact that they put something together in a recommendation that I didn't see is there's the value.
Yeah, I mean, they looked at so many different options and just the level of detail about the type of resident that lives here, you know, and it really helped tie
That was
in.
eye-opening for all of us.
Right, and, you know, it really tied in the ask, what, you know, your recommendation is with, you know, what is really the most important thing is investing in safety services for our community.
Yeah.
Right.
And the impact throughout that has.
You know, something else that impressed me was they looked at the history of the township, you know, what there's a lot of factual and empirical data in the report that shows a lot of the history of the township and where it was before and where we are now as far as, you know, safety and the operations within the township. So that was very impressive. Thank you.
Great exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you. I
honored
don't know if Mr. Sandin has anything
Thank you, too.
to say. Okay, thank you.
He's being humble. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Paganini. Okay, moving on to old business. Setting a public hearing for the tax budget. We're doing that on July 8th at 4 p.m.
Correct.
Does that work for everybody's schedule? Okay. All right, new business. We have some votes for this evening.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the May financial report.
So I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 2024-18, the adoption and approval of the alternative method of appropriating the local government fund.
And I'll second.
Okay, before I call the vote, I'm going to abstain from this vote. Just a little bit conflicted, seeing that I, you know, serve Concord Township, and I also have a obligation as chief in Wade Hill, so I will abstain from the vote.
Well, you know, Mr. McIntosh, I can tell you when we went to the meeting where the committee got up with the Budget Commission to discuss the work that was done, I felt that, kind of like our Citizens Advisory Committee, your group handled every single level of what if, different options. You worked so collaboratively well, it was evident in the actual report and the numbers. And I felt like everybody was so engaged and really felt this is really a great alternative for communities that maybe were top heavy and maybe are gonna see some down. And for other communities like ours who are very low and are gonna see improvement. So it really helped, I think, I was just so impressed with the level of collaboration and everybody understanding and thinking outside the box and trying to work with, again, especially those communities that probably will see a downturn.
I think that was the hardest part of it. You know, again, I'm going to go back. I was aware of the situation before I was a trustee and knew that Concord was getting shortchanged, as it were, and had an expectation of what it was. And I called Auditor Galloway, who was one of our predecessors, and I said, hey, by the way, when we look at this with population, what do you think Concord's number ought to be? And bottom line is, both of us, the reality of what a population number was double what our expectation was. So it's like, wow, this is huge. But I also on the same side understood that had to come from somewhere. So my first calls were to Bob Rinaldo, Ken Filipiak, and Mayor Fiala in Willoughby, and then talking with some of the folks in the west end of the county, because if I was in their shoes and I'm looking at, hey, wow, this is going to be great for Concord, but if I had the inverse, you know, and I were to look at that, if we were to have a 20 or 30% cut to our allocation, though it's so small, wouldn't measure, but if we had that kind of hit to our budget, we know what we're facing right now with the hole in safety services. So we had that empathy. And I think it's important that this board and this administration, Minister Rose, us, have really been aggressive this year in working to try to create more income for Concord. Andy's put a lot of effort into the RID. I put the time into the LGF. We've worked within the community to get that done. We're looking at some other things as far as helping to fund fire station construction, all that stuff. We've been very aggressive about it, and all of it together does something. But, you know, we're going to get a nice increase from the LGF, but it's only, the number for next year is only 14% of the shortfall of the safety service budget. So it's not moving that ball a whole lot. It doesn't offer it, but we're doing a lot of things. We're not just sitting back and saying, here, we need a levy to run the community, this business that is Concord Township, and move on. We are working hard. And I think I could have been selfish and demanded and pushed, but it was a political process. Right. We needed to have some give and take. And I think the thing is, after the cities and the villages and the townships and everybody kind of positioned themselves and we got our frustrations or our positions out on the table, it slowly went away. And we started working on solving problems. What does this mean for Concord? It means that our general fund gets an increase. It gets a little bit healthy. We get a bit more money. So that means we have match money when we have an opportunity to come across from grants. We're sitting on the opportunity to get the nature grant for the restrooms out here. We have to have matching money for that. We haven't done that project for 2 years because we don't have it. Right. Up until the state giving us the money for the water line extension, we didn't have it. So this increase in the LGF is significant. It doesn't solve safety problems, but it gives us room to do the other projects. We have things in the township that need attention. Morley Hills Park. You know, we have playground here that needs attention. We have tennis courts that are failing. Right. We have people saying, hey, we would love to see more pickleballs. We programs. Like, it's endless, the things that the community's Concord Township is being asked to do. This makes working with the community to accomplish and keep Concord what it is more possible. It is not the be-all, end-all. It isn't the silver bullet that solves our budget problems, but it's a step in the right direction. It gives us breathing room. It makes things comfortable, and it gives this board and the township options that are important, things we need. We are a growing community, 5th biggest in the county, second highest property values in all of Lake County, behind the city of Mentor. So this is a substantial community, and this is a big win for us.
Well, and the previous formula was in effect for how long?
42 years.
42 years. So the fact that your group came up with an alternative formula in 4 months that balances most of the cities, townships, and is able to pass and, relatively without, very smoothly is incredible.
We had, Mr. Paganini said something about people and numbers. We had a couple of real solid number hounds on that group that were really good at tearing it apart. And one person tried to reverse engineer the 1982 formula and couldn't figure out, there was no continuity between villages being funded this way, cities being funded this way, and townships being funded. It was just a mess. There was no way to figure out what did they do. The formula that we came up with is durable. Someone's gonna be able to look at this and at least know what we did, or see, oh, it works like this. I get it. It used population. It took these communities and it capped them, and it did it. Very straightforward, very clear. If nothing's changed for 42 years, they'll at least understand how this was done, and they'll be able to take a look at it. And I'm very proud of the work that we did. I mean, this group came together, and I think we, just like that committee, our Citizen Advisory Committee, formed a bond, worked together, and as we got closer and closer, you felt the energy of everybody really just wanting to get this done and get it out there. So we're on the cusp of this being a reality with our votes this evening.
Great example of good public service.
Excellent example.
work.
Very well put,
Yep.
yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good job, Morgan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yes.
Okay, next vote.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Resolution 2024-19, cemetery amendments to the rules and regulations of the Concord Township Cemetery to include a policy defining indigent burials at the township's expense and to include a rule authorizing the township to remove, change, or correct any offensive inscription or object at the expense of the owner.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve cemetery department updated pricing effective June 24th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the purchase order in the amount of $11,181.68 to Sun Rental for our Community Day tent rental.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve PO in the amount of $21,452.50 to TC Construction Company, Inc., change order number 1 for Discovery Lane reconstruction project.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to future meetings and announcements, Mr. Patriarca.
On June 28th at 8 a.m., there'll be a JED board meeting here at Town Hall. On July 1st at 3 p.m., we'll have a staff meeting at Town Hall. On July 3rd at 6:15 p.m., we'll have 2 RID public hearings here at Town Hall. On July 8th, as noted this evening, we will have a tax budget public hearing at 4 p.m. And on July 17th, from 7 to 7:30, we'll have trustee office hours in the conference room, followed by the trustee meeting at 7:30 p.m. at Town Hall.
Thank you, John. Okay, and that concludes our trustee meeting for this evening. Good evening, Concord Township.